Megamaniacs, it's Mr. MegaManFan, and this is Mega-Lo-Mania, or as it was known in Genesis form, Rise Through Time Tyrants. So this time, even though Genesis does what Nintendon't, it don't what Amiga do, because that's where this game came out first on Commodore Amiga. So I give credit where it's due to Mega-Lo-Mania, but they renamed it Tyrants Fight Through Time when they decided to port it to the Sega Genesis. Although I believe they kept the Mega-Lo-Mania name in Japan. This is a turn-based, quasi-real-time strategy game. It's considered one of the archetypes of the genre, and according to Wikipedia, it even predates the Dune real-time strategy game by a year. So let's give it a spin. Okay, I've got the old cartridge in the analog Mega SG, and while it's booting up, I'll tell you a few more facts about the game. It was developed for the Amiga by Sensible Software. They were known for their exaggerated sprites and for player characters in many of their games. They developed Sensible Soccer, Cannon Fodder, and Sensible Golf. It was formed by two high school mates named John Hare and Chris Yates. So, as you've already guessed by now, Sensible Software is very much an English company. They were eventually acquired by Codemasters in 1999. But back to Mega-Lo-Mania, or as it's known here, Tyrants Through Time. It's based on four gods: Scarlet, Caesar, Oberon, and Madcap. There are no differences between them except for their color and the behavior of the built-in AI for the game. In each round of the game, you try to build up a base with an army and equip them with weapons and conquer the various islands, and each time you conquer enough of them, you advance from one epoch of time to another, which is why these tyrants fight through time, because you're trying to advance all the way to the 21st century by winning each of the rounds of the game. So as you can see here, we've got our player selection screen with Scarlet, Oberon, Caesar, and Madcap. I chose Scarlet. She was the most interesting looking of the bunch. And this is Aloha Island from the first epoch. And there's not much you can do on this screen other than pick how many men you want to put on the island and then go to said island. And because I have only a loose cartridge and no instruction manual, and didn't have one available in a printout form as a scan, I'm just trying to figure this out as I go. It finally turned out that B and C increase and decrease the amount of men on the island, and the longer you hold down the button, the more rapidly the number changes. So I went from 0 to 100 real quick, faster than a Tesla. But that's not what I needed here. I needed to know the right number. It doesn't matter if it's 0 or 100. I needed to have enough to defend myself when a neighboring army came along, and I had no idea that was what I was doing. You know, with me and real-time strategy games, it's a bit of a fight, no pun intended, because I'm the kind of person who likes action games and role-playing games and arcade shooter-style games and platformers. Real-time strategy games, they've never quite been my thing, and I don't hate them as a genre. It's just that I don't prefer them either. I would rather be in control of all of my actions through my direct manipulation of what I see, as opposed to putting something on the screen, giving it directions, and then sitting back and watching. That's just not my style personally. But again, it's not that I hate the genre. In fact, oftentimes it's very closely related to RPGs in that you have to build up and level up and advance your progress by collecting the right things and getting the right stats. So there is some crossover there, and a good real-time strategy game can be a lot of fun, but getting my butt kicked is not any fun, and not knowing how to play the game is not any fun either. Maybe if this had come with a manual and I could have studied it before I put it in the analog, I would have felt a little better about it, but As you can see here, I am completely getting my ass handed to me because I didn't know how to equip these guys. I didn't know how many I needed to defend the island. And if I'm being completely honest, it looks like I'm staring at lemmings. And if I'm going to play a game that looks like lemmings, I would rather play lemmings because there the skill that you need is obvious. You have to keep the lemmings from dying by getting them to build things or blow up things that are in the way and get them from the start line to the finish line, and you can figure out the path where to go. It doesn't even need explanation or an instruction manual. You just intuitively know, use the lemming that has this ability to do this thing, and then put these lemmings over here to do that thing, and then watch the progress as they go through each one of those things, and speed up time if you want to make it go faster so you don't have to sit there waiting. But I'm not going to sit here waiting and trying to figure Tyrants out anymore. The tyranny of Tyrants is over. So instead of going back in my storage for another loose cartridge, I decided that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and there was a straight line to the Genesis core right there on the pause menu. So, wise from your grave, I'm going to play something that's a lot more fun, and that's Altered Beast. Now, this is one I struggled with deciding whether or not to feature on an episode of Genesis Does, because by the very, very strict technical definition of Genesis Does what Nintendon't, this one might not be able to pass because there was a Famicom version of Altered Beast in 1990. However, in the United States where I live, Altered Beast was a pack-in game for the Sega Genesis and was more or less exclusive to Sega Genesis. There was also a Master System version, but I don't think it was widely known compared to the Genesis version. And in playability, especially compared to the arcade original, it can't compare to the Sega Genesis version. So really, it just depends on your perspective. If you can say, because it's on a Nintendo platform, it's not Nintendon't, you're probably right, because it does exist as a Famicom cartridge, but that was never released here. Here it was only known as a Genesis game. And then again, if we're going to get into the whole Nintendon't thing, everything eventually came to the Virtual Console on Wii in the 2000s because of the huge, huge success of Nintendo Wii. So at that point, there's no such thing as Nintendon't anymore. So I think for the scope of this series, henceforth, I'm going to use Nintendon't as meaning Sega Genesis does in North America what Nintendon't. As long as they have the 16-bit exclusive in this country or Mexico or Canada, then it is Genesis does what Nintendon't. If there are two versions of it, like Street Fighter 2 is both on Genesis and Super Nintendo, then it doesn't count for this series. It's got to at least be exclusive in North America, or it's a no-go. If you agree with this definition, let me know. If you don't, let me know as well. Just leave a comment or tweet me at Mr. MegaManFan, and I will respond to the feedback and make adjustments if necessary. You know, everybody mocks "Rise from your grave" at the start of the game, but I honestly think it's even sillier when the boss at the end of each level says, "Welcome to your doom." But when I say silly, I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, because this is already a cartoonish, over-the-top, absurd game. You have guys walking around collecting power-ups, turning into monsters, so it's not realistic anyway. So if it's going to be campy, be as campy as you want to be. Just go all out. So whether the voice acting in this case was intentionally campy or accidentally campy, it actually enhances the quality of Altered Beast, because everything about this is honestly just as silly gets, and it's one of my favorite games for that reason. Like, for example, these monsters that jump on the top of your head, and I don't know, they suck your brains out like the invasion of the body snatchers or something. They're taking over your mind and killing you. I don't know what they're doing. Then you got these snakes that appear at the top and the bottom of the screen at the same time. They're like the lesser dog from Undertale. They just wrap all the way around the screen scroll. But I'm not going to try to pet the snake because that would hurt. And what's this ability you get when you get your first power up anyway? Is he breathing fire or ice, or is he just exhaling a large gust of wind? Is that a burst of electricity? I mean, what is he even doing? There is so much about Altered Beast that, examined in a logical way, it really doesn't make any sense. Another thing that's always been weird about this game is, why do you only get to fight the boss when you're fully powered up? If he's not going to accept your challenge until you're fully powered up, why wouldn't you just challenge him yourself and kick his ass before he transforms into a boss? Logical question, no good answer, but it's a silly game, so don't worry about it. Sometimes you just have to sit back and enjoy the action. And this is kind of what I was talking about back when we were looking at Tyrants for Sega Genesis, because while Tyrants was a fight to play, and not just a fight through time, this is not a fight to play. It's just immediate and fun and easy to control and obvious what to do right away. There's no explanation required. What did that old saying about video games go? Simple to learn, a lifetime to master. That's Altered Beast. Simple to learn, a lifetime to master. It's not one of those games that requires you to learn 100 different combos of buttons or requires an entire book of instructions to explain how you progress and build up your characters. And I'm not knocking those games. I'm not saying those are bad games. I'm just saying this one is fun from the gun, and I highly recommend it if you've never played it before. In conclusion, thumbs down for Tyrants, thumbs up for Altered Beast. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and as always, thank you for watching.